The Internet Archive is a nonprofit institution dedicated to making knowledge universally accessible online. Similar to the Digital Public Library of America, they are a place where you can find digital primary sources and secondary sources that come from institutions all over the United States. The Internet Archive also has some of their own collections in their physical buildings. Now, the Internet Archive is not the most user-friendly website available, but the resources on here are so powerful that it's worth the time to try and learn how to access books, movies, software, music, and many other resources that could be used in the classroom. So in this screencast, we're going to take a quick overview of what's on the Internet Archive so that you can come back on your own time and explore more in depth. One of the most interesting resources the Internet Archive has is called the Wayback Machine. The Wayback Machine allows you to look at websites at different periods of time. So as we all know, websites are constantly updated and changing, but the Internet Archive thinks it's important to preserve websites at different periods in time. For example, the websites used by presidential hopefuls during their campaigns. These websites won't stay online forever, but through the Wayback Machine, we'll have access to them as an archival record for the rest of time. The Wayback Machine can be a very fun tool to use in the classroom because students will be amazed to see what websites used to look like before they were born. And it's really fun as an adult to go online and see different websites at different periods of time, but it's also a powerful content tool to study presidential elections and other topics more related to current events and history. The Internet Archive has access to 8.1 million digitized texts. A lot of these are books that were published before 1923, therefore they are free of copyright. But they also have books that you can get from Open Library that students can rent through e-readers or to read online. And they also include rare books from institutions like the Georgia Historical Society. So for example, you can read books that the Georgia Historical Society published in the 19th and 20th century on the Internet Archive. You can also download these texts as PDFs in a lot of cases to use in the classroom to print, and it's a really amazing but sometimes overwhelming resource. The Internet Archive also has 2 million video clips in their online library. A lot of these relate to news coverage. So for example, they have a whole collection on news coverage from September 11th. They have news clips from elections or advertising campaigns. A lot of really interesting materials that can be shown in the classroom. Similarly, they have audio. Over 2.5 million audio files. Now this can be anything from Grateful Dead concerts to radio programs from the 1930s. Lots of interesting music and radio that can be incorporated into your lesson plans. Your students might have a great time looking at the software that has been saved on the Internet Archive. For example, you can play versions of old arcade video games through the Internet Archive. And finally, the Internet Archive also has some images that come from their own collections and also from partners like NASA. So the Internet Archive is a really interesting resource, and it really reflects where archives and libraries are going in the future. it's dedicated to not just saving paper documents, but also digital documents. So for example, the emails and websites created by politicians and people who work for the government, when all of that was done in paper, those would have been saved at the National Archive. Now that a lot of things are done digitally, the Internet Archive is working to make sure that they're preserved in the same way for future generations and for the benefit of transparency. So the Internet Archive is a great resource. It does take a little time to get used to, and they haven't developed many helps specifically for educators, but it is definitely worth your time to get to know the Internet Archive.